Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio, where we help attorneys achieve unparalleled personal and professional success. And now here's your host, Ann Jeanette Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Esquire Coaching Radio Show. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today. As you know, Esquire Coaching is a national coaching and consulting firm that's dedicated to helping attorneys achieve extraordinary whole life success. And one of the key factors that we are very committed to is diversity and inclusion. To that end, we have a very special guest today who's going to talk to us about the LGBT Bar's work to connect community and careers in the legal profession. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the LGBT Bar Association is the nation's largest organization of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and allied legal professions. With thousands of members spanning the corporate, firm, nonprofit, and government sphere, the Bar plays a leading role in ensuring legal professionals have access to the latest resources, opportunities, and skills. From organizing Lavender Law, an annual conference attracting more than 1,600 attendees, working on cutting-edge legal issues, to spearheading legal change from inside the profession, the Bar plays a unique role in ensuring the legal and political advancements of the LGBT community and impact that it has on real people and families. Darcy Kemmons brings more than 2 decades of nonprofit and social justice experience to her role as the LGBT Bar's executive director. Under her leadership, the Bar has become the largest and most recognized organization of LGBT legal professionals in the country. In addition to organizing more than 25 affiliated LGBT bar associations and dozens of LGBT law student associations, Darcy oversees the Lavender Law Conference and Career Fair each year. Darcy is frequently quoted on LGBT legal issues, appearing in media outlets including the ABA Journal, ABC News, and Time Magazine. She's a distinguished graduate of the University of Wisconsin and the Hamline University School of Law. Darcy, it is such an honor to have you here. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Ann. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm so glad. So we have a very important topic, and this is something that I really wanted to bring up, especially in light of June being National Gay Pride Month. So perfect timing. I just want to remind our listeners that we will have time at the end of this broadcast for you to ask Darcy questions personally. All you have to do is call 347-838-8719 and press 1 to get in the line. That's 347-838-8719 and press 1. All right, Darcy, let's dive right in. You know, in a few months, you'll convene the Lavender Law Conference and Career Fair in New York City. What role does Lavender Law play in helping legal professionals stay up to date on the fast-changing LGBT legal issues? and what can attendees really expect from this conference?
We're very excited for this year's conference coming up. This year will be our 26th year, which is an accomplishment. The LGBT Bar was a brainchild of a handful of lawyers who got together on the March Against AIDS in 1988 that took place here in Washington, D.C. And it's appropriate that we look back to that period of time now that we have so much media interest in that era. For instance, we have the Dallas Buyers Club and the Normal Heart is on TV, and that's really where the LGBT Bar came from. Back then, we were called the National Lesbian and Gay Law Association. We did not call ourselves a bar association at that time because we didn't want people to call us the gay bar, but you know, now, Ann, we own that, and we're glad to reappropriate our language. So we are the gay bar, and we are the lawyers behind the headlines. I very clearly remember a time when we were lucky when there was any coverage of LGBT issues in the news. And now we find ourselves going into our 26th annual event in a world in which we're rarely not in the headlines. It's rare to find the Washington Post or major dailies not covering us. And we're also in a situation with Time Magazine having wonderfully beautiful and articulate transgender activists and actor like Laverne Cox being depicted in a positive light there. So there is a huge menu of options for lawyers to get involved with Lavender Law, our annual conference that will take place August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at the Sheraton Midtown in New York City. And all the information about the organization and the annual event can be found at lgbtbar.org. But what we do to keep our lawyers up to date, and that's more of a challenge today, really than ever before, is we build community. As other practitioners who are out there listening will know, when you need to have something filed and you need somebody to review it, or you need an expert that you can refer one of your favorite clients to, you're going to need a community of people around you who do your same type of practice, who understand what you're up against, whether you're doing transactional practice or litigation. So Lavender Law is more than just a CLE. After all, and you can get online CLEs for free. That's not what an in-person conference is about. So people can come to Lavender Law. They can challenge. We want you to know what courses you're choosing. We have over 125 faculty teaching our courses. But don't just be prepared for the coursework. We have all of our CLE materials online. You can study it before you get into the classroom because it will go fast. These are the people who teach law, who litigate these cases, and they have very, very specialized area. But expect to be challenged in the halls and in the elevators because you're going to find colleagues who work in your area. We've got special application-only opportunities. We have a very advanced family law institute coming from those decades in which we were losing our LGBT lawyers to the AIDS epidemic, particularly our gay men. We have a tax think tank in direct response to what's happening with the Windsor case and all the fallout of the more than 1,026 rights and considerations that are embedded in the word marriage. We have a group of finance lawyers getting together. They get together every year and go out and have a couple of drinks and talk about their practice. And for the first time, we're organizing a group of insurance lawyers as well. So we want lawyers to come to our annual event hoping to be challenged, to learn a lot, and then to be inspired because really a great majority of our attendees are younger lawyers and our issues are really in their hands. Think about it, Anne. When I went to law school back in the day of the dinosaurs, we were barely getting LGBT groups set up in law schools at that time in the 80s and the 90s. And now we're in a situation where young people are coming to our conference having come out as teenagers. And they're excited to push their rights and privileges and push the issues of the law. So we're very excited about this year's event.
Oh, so am I. And I want to just put a personal plug. I went when I was in law school about 10 years ago, and I found it to be so inspiring and the connections that I made and absolutely challenging. So I encourage anybody that is listening, whether you are a part of the LGBT umbrella or an ally, just come. It is such an empowering conference, and you all have just continued to do such a great job. And I think I'll be also talking a little bit about our Diverse Rainmaker program there, so I'm excited to share that as well.
We're excited to have you there, Anne.
Oh, great. Now, finding the right legal career, especially in this current job market, it can be tricky. So what opportunities will our LGBT law students find at the Lavender Law Career Fair?
The law students, face a very dark time for their career is certainly different from when I was in law school, or even the recession after the 2001 attacks. You know, the Great Recession has really affected law students, and we have the nation's largest diversity and minority career fair. I think if you added up all the BALSAs, which are the Black Law Student Association regionals, they would be larger than us, but we'll have more than 165 entities recruiting, from governmental departments to the private law firms, and also we've got corporations looking for experienced lawyers. We know that JP Morgan Chase and Microsoft and Liberty Mutual come in looking for many, many lawyers. So it's not just for the 2Ls anymore, and that's part of the new normal in the recession. You know, we do ask that when you're coming to the career fair as a student, you come early. The National Association for Law Placement organizes a career services warm-up session in which they'll get the students up and running before they have to go up to the first table and sit down and have an impromptu discussion about who they are. We also do one-on-one career counseling organized by the National Association for Law Placement. So we have a variety of options. While the law firms that are at the career fair are the global giants, we also have the instructors who are teaching, say, family law, transactional estate planning, or other areas of the practice throughout the course of our 3-day event. Now, for those who want to go the big law firm path, we have a really exciting Lavender Law success story about our career fair on our blog at lgbtbar.org. We learned through that success story that in this instance of this University of Pittsburgh student, Carrie did her research, and she went through the list of the recruiters and studied them. She walked into that career fair and got her last-minute resume tips and walked into the career fair, did a couple warm-up interviews with some firms that she was not as interested in, and then it was just going to be about the end of the day when Carrie said she found herself standing directly in front of the stall viewing table. And given that they seemed warm and inviting, she thought, well, this is the one I want. I'm just going to sit down and start a conversation. As the conversation progressed, they realized they shared a mutual acquaintance, and before you know it, she's called in for a lunch, which became an unexpected dinner with other partners, and before you know it, she's at stall viewing. I think you should. It just happens, and I think the advice that she gives students coming into Lavender Law is that it's not just the career fair where we make professional connections. She tells students to take advantage of every opportunity to talk to people. You never know where your next job offer will come from. So don't make the mistake of thinking that the person lining up with you for the lunch buffet isn't worthy of a friendship, because if you have fun, every connection is worth making, because you get to talk a little bit about yourself, and then people want to hire you. They don't want to hire your resume. So we think that we provide a lot of variety of experiences, a lot of variety of options for those right students, and all we ask is that you come to Lavender Law open to it.
Oh, I love that, and I couldn't agree with you more, because not only could those relationships serve you now, they might serve you later. They might become potential clients, or be able to direct you to future advancements in your career. You just never know.
And I think that's really important, because while this is a job fair, sure it is, but you know what else it is? It's networking for the quality of your life, because you're going to live, eat, and sleep in this profession. I know students think they're very busy people, and indeed they are. But you know what? When you learn to talk to people just as yourself, as a comfortable individual, willing to be open and sharing and show a compassionate curiosity about the other person, that will help you to become a rainmaker later in your career. So I like to say that students aren't just coming to get a job at the career fair, although it happens, They're coming to learn how to be a responsible citizen within the profession. And you never know who you're going to meet at Lavender Law. You don't know if you're going to meet your next employer. You might be meeting your next big client. And heck, you might even be meeting the next love of your life. It's happened every year. We have one couple. And then not just the LGBT self-identified people, Anne. We have a lot of straight allies there, too. So come and network and think about quality of life.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, wow. Okay. So, you know, just one of your award recipients this year is retired Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Pritzker, who is the country's highest-ranking transgender veteran. You've also recently petitioned the federal government to change military paperwork for transgender veterans. Why is this issue of such importance to the bar, and how did your work in this area come about?
I think that whenever we talk about military issues as they affect the LGBT, the lesbian, gay, or bisexual community, which is the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, first an executive order and then a statute, or if we talk about T, which is the transgender web of regulations currently affecting transgender service members and veterans, we have to remember that Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the success we saw with that campaign is due to the work of law schools and the legal professionals. Because of the Solomon Amendment, both 1 and 2, organizations like the Association of American Law Schools stood against the discrimination that is found within Don't Ask, Don't Tell and also within the web of regulations affecting transgender service members and veterans. And so the LGBT bar, just throughout its history, had great strength with military lawyers who knew the UCMJ, the set of code that affects the military so well. And now remember, you know, your job in the military, whether you're a JAG officer or whether you just started as an enlisted individual, you show up late for that job, Anne, and that's the kind of job where they show you they show you to the brig for being late at work. This is a different type of an employer. And so we've had a long history with the military, and we are just delighted that Colonel Jennifer Pritzker will be joining us this year. We believe, and there's some good studies on this, but nothing definitive, we believe that transgender individuals show up in very high rates within the U.S. Armed Services. And that's probably because it's what I like to call the most gendered place in the world. It's a place where you're told how long your hair should be, whether or not you're wearing a skirt or pants. It's a very gendered place. And so by virtue of that, when talking transgender issues, we need to be talking about military issues. We've got a great set of lawyers, individuals like David Adelstone, who represented Sergeant Matlovich back in 1972, who was on the cover of Time magazine, all the way up to modern lawyers like Steve Lessard at the Orrick Law Firm, who's doing amazing pro bono work and trying to get names changed so that when service veterans would be placed into Arlington after they're no longer with us and pass away, they have the proper names on their headstones. So this is a very key issue to the LGBT bar. And while we're not a military law group, our lawyers that are members of our organization are some of the best lawyers in the world on this issue.
Wow. I mean, such an important issue, and thank you for really taking the initiative and interest in bringing transgendered issues right front and center. I think that's wonderful. Now, I just want to take a moment to pause and remind our listeners, if you have a question for Darcy, now is the time to call in, 347-838-8719, and you must press 1 to get in the line. That's 347-838-8719 and press 1. All right, while we're waiting for callers to call in, let me just keep asking you a few questions. Now, you know, in this day and age, LGBT issues are they're changing rapidly. And even in some traditionally red states, families are being recognized under the law. How are members of the bar better positioned to work with our community on relationships, family, and other legal issues? And do you think it makes a difference when LGBT clients have LGBT legal representation?
Absolutely. We think it's very important that the lawyers representing the clients have an understanding of what's often called cultural capabilities or an understanding of the experience of their client before them. We're extremely proud of our Family Law Institute. It's a voluntary group of family lawyers, some of whom have been practicing for decades and decades, who are allowing individual new young lawyers to apply to come into their ranks. They have to make certain agreements that they will come to meetings on a regular basis, that they'll keep their memberships up and running, and that they won't represent certain types of situations and will instead promote other types of situations. For instance, we don't want a situation in which there's going to be individual lawyers making bad law for other LGBT families just because someone might have a high-paying client who might allow them to do that. And we've seen that over and over again, especially in lesbian custody cases. People will remember the Miller-Jenkins case from Vermont, in which one of the moms took the child and ended up all the way in Central America. So we're extremely proud of the infrastructure and the commitment to ethics that an organization like the Family Law Institute shows. We have another institute for corporations, for corporate counsel, in which they strive to do the best they can to find outside legal counsel. And as a matter of fact, on our website, lgbtbar.org, we have a little anecdote under our Lavender Law success stories on speed networking. Our corporate counsel folks not only come in to meet in a closed-door session to talk about diverse lawyers and the outside legal providers. They, of course, we'll be talking about fee structures and alternative fee arrangements and talking about compliance and the issues they face. But then they do more. They come out from behind those walls and they do speed networking or mock interviewing with outside legal counsel. And in fact, that had led to a contract and some work between one of our favorite lawyers, Marla Butler, from Robbins, Kaplan, Miller, and Cerasi, and Xerox. And, you know, the advice that, and they actually do say, as they tell their story, that they met in the elevator on the way down. So, warning, if you come to Lavender Law, make sure you have your elevator story ready, because you will find people in the elevators to talk to. But Marla does say, you know, to go to Lavender Law as an outside counsel, the best way to go about it is to do what you can to find out in advance who is attending. I go to the speakers list online, she says, to get a sense of who is attending so I can be strategic about whom I meet. And that's what's so important when you're looking at your time at a conference. If you've dedicated a certain amount of time, you want to make sure that you're doing the best you can and not making assumptions. For instance, one of our best general counsel who's incredibly active is in the state of Tennessee. You know, we do a lot of work in other jurisdictions, and while they don't get the press that, say, San Francisco gets, we do represent lawyers from all those areas. So one should not make assumptions about where one is doing their practice. We have more and more regional, local, and municipal affiliates. Are all listed on our website, lgbtbar.org, and I encourage you to join one of those as soon as you can.
Oh, such a great point, such a great point. And, you know, I also want to just commend you for your innovation. This year, we saw the bar launch a number of new initiatives. You mentioned earlier the LGBT Tax Project, you know, which provides state-by-state information for tax filers. What prompted the bar to expand beyond just CLE and networking events and into the realm of this real-world application of the law?
Well, it was really just the demand of our members. You know, we're working hard against what is called the gay or trans panic defense. You may not know it if you don't do criminal law, but you know it from the headlines. For instance, there was a young and handsome, successful candidate for mayor's office in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and he was didn't come home one night. He was the only son of loving parents, and his mom and dad worried, and his body was found down by a levee. The press reports indicated that someone who was known to him said, you know, I had to kill him. In essence, the press reports were something to the effect that the assailant had to kill Marco because he was afraid that Marco was going to rape him, according to friends and hearsay evidence that's out there.
Okay.
Now, I ask you.
I know. I'm like heartbroken just hearing that.
Yeah. You know, we can't go back to Marco McMillian and say, what's your side of the story? This is a secondary victimization of someone who is no longer there and able to tell their story. And the LGBT Bar inherited this matter in 2004 when an assistant district attorney was murdered in Atlanta, Georgia. And the district attorney there, Paul Howard, at the time, had held the first ever conference against the use of this defense. And why would a district attorney be so outraged at the use of this defense? After all, you know, defense lawyers want to use whatever defense they can, you know, have to hand at the time they have to appear. And Paul Howard was very upset at the use of this defense against his assistant district attorney Ahmed because why? Because it worked. And the assailant, the murderer, was acquitted. And this is why we're working against it. We're very delighted the American Bar Association last year upheld a resolution against the GayTrans panic, and we're hoping that additional jurisdictions will continue to work on this. We know in California there's a bill pending right now. We'd like to see something in New York and the District of Columbia and other jurisdictions as well.
Well, you know, I just want to extend our support that if there's ever anything we at Esquire Coaching can do, even just to help publicize this matter, just feel free to utilize us. It's really too important to ignore.
Absolutely.
Now, you know, Darcy, I can't believe we only have a few minutes left, but very quickly, I know you have been with the LGBT Bar for a number of years, I think at least a decade. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, you've seen a lot of transition, but what has been the biggest change since you began work at the bar for LGBT legal professionals?
I think the view of marriage has been the biggest change that I've witnessed. Remember in 1993, we got the Bauer decision out of Hawaii. We subsequently gave our Straight Allies Award to the Supreme Court Justice who wrote a very moving opinion that there was later a popular vote against or was overruled, that is to say, not dissimilar to what happened in California. I am very cautious, Anne, about marriage because I don't want marriage to become a type of a litmus test for equality. You know, we're in a world in which there's dozens and dozens of state jurisdictions in which someone can say, I'm gay, and an employer can say, really? You're fired. And there is no legal redress in those situations, whether they're a lawyer or not. You know, we have dozens and dozens of jurisdictions there. So while marriage is really wonderful, and I think there's unique factors to marriage, it's a celebration. It has components of religion to certain families in certain contexts. It involves a public witnessing in a way that a lot of things don't. It's a positive. It's easy to get behind in certain ways. But I think that as lawyers, we have to be a little bit more intellectually rigorous than, say, our civilian counterparts and think further into the law about adoption and what it's like for LGBT people to adopt and second parent adoptions and the invasive nature of having your own children and yet having to adopt them under the law in many, many jurisdictions, and the costs and the problems of the home studies and the demand for portability that makes parents like us do that. So there's many, many more issues that are out there that we'll be talking about at this Lavender Law April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd in New York.
Absolutely. This is, this has been so important, and I couldn't agree with you more. Can you share with our listeners how they can become a member of the bar or register for Lavender Law or both?
Yeah, we're very much a modern, paperless, virtual office. The LGBTbar.org will take you. Our first slide is the tax project. You meet our current president, Nicole Dogwell, and then you'll get a listing of our Out and Proud Corporate Council receptions, and then you get to our 2014 Lavender Law Conference and Career Fair. You simply need to sign up online and become a bar VIP. We'd love to have you.
Oh, fantastic. And I highly encourage our listeners to go ahead and sign, whether you are a part of the community or an ally. It really doesn't matter. It's such a great organization. Darcy, I can't believe we're out of time, but thank you so much for this really exciting, informative interview.
Well, thank you. And we've got our first straight board member, Ted Furman from GlaxoSmithKline. So we're excited about our straight allies, so do please attend.
Excellent. And listeners, let's keep this conversation going. Tell us your thoughts about advancing LGBT rights in the legal profession. You can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. You can find all of those on www.esquirecoaching.com. Until next week, be well.